wasn't supposed to hear that conversation. But once I did, there was no going back. And the worst part wasn't what they said, it was who said it. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 58 years old.
And I thought I had built a family that loved and respected me. I used to believe that with my whole heart. That belief died quietly at 3:07 in the morning. It started with something small. It always does, doesn't it? A noise. A feeling. That strange pull in your chest that tells you something isn't right. I woke up because of the sound of footsteps. Soft. Careful. Not the kind you make when you're just heading to the kitchen for water. These were deliberate. Almost secretive. At first, I thought it was my son, Daniel. He had always been a night owl even as a kid. But something about it felt off. I checked the clock. 3:07 a.m. Too late for normal. Too early for morning. I sat up slowly, my heart already beating faster than it should have been. The house was silent otherwise. No TV. No running water. Just those faint movements outside my room. I slipped out of bed, careful not to make a sound. The floor was cold under my feet, grounding me, pulling me fully awake. As I opened my bedroom door just a crack, I saw it. A sliver of light coming from the guest room. But it wasn't a guest room anymore. That was where Daniel and his wife Ashley were staying. They had moved in with me 6 months ago. Just temporary, they said. Until we get back on our feet. I didn't hesitate. Of course I didn't. He's my son. And Ashley, well, I tried. I really did. She had this way about her. Sweet on the surface. Polite. Always smiling. But there was something behind it. Something I couldn't quite place. At first, I thought it was just me. Maybe I was being too critical. Maybe I just needed to give her time. But over the months, little things started adding up. She would go quiet when I entered the room. She'd exchange looks with Daniel when I spoke. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at me, not with warmth, but calculation. Still, I ignored it. Because what kind of mother doubts her own son's wife without proof? That night, I got my proof. I stepped into the hallway, moving slowly, my breath shallow. The light from their room spilled onto the floor, cutting through the darkness like a spotlight. And then I heard voices. Whispers. Ashley's voice first. Low. Urgent. Don't tell her, she'll lose everything. My stomach dropped instantly. Daniel responded, his voice tight. She already has, she just doesn't know it yet. I froze. Completely. It felt like my body forgot how to move. How to breathe. They were talking about me. There was no doubt. No confusion. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Lose everything. What did that even mean? I leaned closer, my hand lightly touching the wall to steady myself. Ashley again, sharper this time. We have to be careful. If she finds out now, it'll ruin everything. Daniel sighed. I knew that sigh. I had heard it 1,000 times growing up. It was the sound he made when he was stressed. When he felt trapped. But this time it wasn't about school. Or work. It was about me. I know, he said. Just give it a little more time. Time for what? My heart was pounding so loud I was sure they'd hear it. Every instinct told me to walk away. To go back to bed. To pretend I hadn't heard anything. But I couldn't. Because deep down, I already knew something was wrong long before this night. This just confirmed it. I shifted slightly, and that's when the floor creaked. A tiny sound. Barely anything. But in that silence it was enough. The whispers stopped instantly. My breath caught. And then I heard footsteps approaching the door. Fast. Too fast. The door swung open. And there they were. Daniel and Ashley. Standing right in front of me. For a split second, none of us said anything. Ashley's face went pale. The color drained so quickly it was almost frightening. Daniel looked guilty. There's no other word for it. His shoulders tensed, his eyes flickering between me and Ashley like he was trying to calculate something. "What are you doing up, Mom?" he asked, forcing a casual tone that didn't even come close to sounding natural. I looked at both of them, my chest tightening. "I could ask you the same thing," I said quietly. Ashley crossed her arms, her posture defensive now. "We were just talking, couldn't sleep." "About me?" I asked. Silence. That silence said everything. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "You shouldn't be listening at doors." The words hit me harder than I expected. Not denial. Not reassurance. Just blame. I felt something inside me crack. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet, painful shift. "I wasn't listening," I said, my voice trembling despite my effort to stay calm. "I heard my name in my own house at 3 in the morning." Ashley's eyes narrowed slightly. Not scared anymore. Not even surprised. Just cold. "You're overreacting," she said. Overreacting. After everything I had just heard. After everything I had done for them. I looked at Daniel, waiting for him to say something. To defend me. To explain. But he didn't. And that hurt more than anything Ashley could ever say. "Daniel," I whispered, "what's going on?" He hesitated. Just for a second. But I saw it. That hesitation told me the truth was bad. Really bad. And then Ashley spoke again. And this time she didn't hold back. "You really want to know," she said, her voice calm but cutting. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." I felt my heart drop into my stomach. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Whatever they had been hiding from me was about to change my life forever. "You really want to know," she said, her voice calm but cutting. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." There are moments in life when everything slows down. When your instincts scream at you to stop, to turn around, to not hear what's about to come next. This was one of those moments. But I didn't move. I couldn't. Because whatever this was, it already had its claws in me. "Yes," I said, even though my voice barely came out. "I want to know." Ashley exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding this in for a long time. Not nervously. Not reluctantly. Almost patiently. Like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. Daniel shifted beside her. "Ash, maybe we should." "No," she cut him off, her tone firm. "We're past that." Then she looked straight at me. And for the first time since she entered my life, she didn't pretend. No sweetness. No politeness. No fake smiles. Just truth. Raw and unapologetic. "You're going to lose this house," she said. The words didn't register at first. "What?" "You heard me," she replied. "This house, it's not going to be yours much longer." I blinked, trying to process it. That's not possible." Daniel stepped forward, his face tight. "Mom." "No, let her talk," I said, raising my hand slightly. My entire body felt numb, but something inside me had snapped into focus. I needed to hear this. All of it. Ashley tilted her head slightly. "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" She let out a quiet, almost amused breath. "About the second mortgage." My heart skipped. "There is no second mortgage," I said immediately. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Because I hadn't checked in a while. I trusted Daniel. I trusted him with everything. 6 months ago, when they moved in, he told me he could help manage some of the paperwork. Bills, taxes, refinancing options. "You don't need to stress about this stuff anymore, Mom," he had said. "Let me handle it." And I did. God, I did. Ashley watched my face carefully, like she was studying every crack forming in real time. "Daniel," I said slowly, turning to him. "What is she talking about?" He couldn't meet my eyes. That was all the answer I needed. But I still wanted to hear him say it. I was trying to fix things," he muttered. "Fix what?" My voice rose despite myself. "Daniel, what did you do?" Ashley answered instead. "He took out a second mortgage on the house," she said plainly. "In your name." The world tilted. "That's not possible," I whispered. He can't do that without me. She gave me a look that felt almost pitying. He didn't do it without you, she said. You signed the papers. My mind scrambled, flipping through memories. Documents. Forms. Papers I had skimmed and signed because my son told me it was routine. Oh my God. My legs felt weak. I grabbed onto the wall to steady myself. Daniel finally looked at me, his eyes filled with something between guilt and desperation. Mom, I was going to tell you. When? I snapped. After I lost my home. No, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. Ashley let out a sharp laugh. Really, because it's happening exactly like this. Stop, Daniel said, turning to her. You're not helping. I'm telling the truth, she shot back. Something you should have done months ago. I stared at them, my chest heaving. How much? I asked. Daniel hesitated. How much, Daniel? 200,000. The number hit like a physical blow. I felt my knees buckle slightly, but I forced myself to stay upright. $200,000. Against my house. Without my understanding. Without my consent, no worse. With my blind trust. Where is it? I asked, my voice shaking. Where did the money go? Silence again. That silence was becoming a pattern. And every time it happened, it got worse. Ashley crossed her arms. Tell her. Daniel swallowed hard. I had debts. What kind of debts? He didn't answer right away. And suddenly I understood. Gambling, I said quietly. His face flinched. That was it. Oh God. All those late nights. The stress. The vague answers. How long? I whispered. Mom. How long, Daniel? 3 years. 3 years. He had been drowning for 3 years. And I had no idea. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet. So you used me, I said. Not as a question. As a fact. No, I was trying to fix it before it got worse. By making it worse. I shot back. By risking everything I have. I thought I could win it back, he said, his voice breaking. There it was. The lie gamblers tell themselves. I had read about it. Heard about it. Never thought I'd live it. Ashley sighed, rubbing her temple. And when that didn't work, we had to come here. We. I repeated, my gaze snapping to her. She didn't flinch. Yes, me too, I knew about the debt. Of course she did. From the beginning. She nodded. A cold wave washed over me. So this was never temporary, I said slowly. Moving in here, that was part of the plan. Daniel shook his head quickly. No, Mom, it wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, Ashley interrupted. We needed time, and this house. She glanced around slightly. Was the only asset left. Asset. She called my home an asset. The place where I raised my son. Where every memory lived. Just an asset. I felt something inside me harden. A quiet shift. You said I'm going to lose it, I said. Why? Ashley's expression grew serious again. Because the payments haven't been made, she said. For months. I looked at Daniel, horror creeping in. Is that true? He didn't answer. That was answer enough. How long? 4 months. I closed my eyes for a second. 4 months behind. On a second mortgage I didn't even know existed. This house is in foreclosure, Margaret, Ashley said, her voice softer now but not kinder. Just factual. They've already sent notices. I never received anything, I said immediately. Daniel winced. Oh no. They went through me, he admitted. I didn't want you to worry. I let out a hollow laugh. Didn't want me to worry. You didn't want me to stop you, I corrected. He didn't argue. Because he couldn't. Silence filled the hallway again, but this time it felt heavier. Thicker. Suffocating. I looked at both of them. At the two people I had trusted most in this house. And for the first time I didn't recognize them. Why were you whispering tonight? I asked quietly. Ashley and Daniel exchanged a look. That same look I had noticed for months. Now I knew what it meant. Daniel hesitated. Ashley didn't. Because we got a call today, she said. My stomach dropped again. What kind of call? The bank, she replied. Final notice. The words echoed in my head. Final notice. This week, she continued, they start proceedings. Proceedings. Legal. Official. Final. Everything I had built, everything I thought was secure was slipping away. And the worst part. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't fate. It wasn't even a stranger. It was my own son. I felt a tear finally escape, sliding down my cheek. But I didn't wipe it away. I just stood there in the middle of the hallway at 3 a.m, realizing that my life, as I knew it, was already gone. I don't remember deciding to sit down, but suddenly I was on the edge of the hallway bench, my hands gripping the wood so tightly my knuckles turned white. Everything felt distant, muted. Like I was watching someone else's life collapse instead of my own. This week. I repeated slowly, my voice hollow. You're telling me I have days. Daniel stepped closer, crouching in front of me like he used to when he was a child trying to apologize for breaking something. Mom, we can fix this, he said quickly. I've been working on a plan. I let out a quiet, humorless breath. A plan. I looked at him, really looked at him. Daniel, your last plan put me $200,000 into debt and 4 months away from losing my home. His face crumpled slightly. I know I messed up, but I'm telling you this time. Stop. My voice was calm. Too calm. That's what made him go silent. I don't want to hear another plan, I said. I want the truth, all of it, no more half answers, no more lies. Ashley leaned against the doorframe, arms still crossed. Watching us like this was a scene she had already played out in her head. You want the full picture, she said. I turned to her. Yes. She nodded once. Then here it is. The house isn't just in foreclosure danger, it's already in pre-foreclosure status. The bank gave a grace window. That window ends in 5 days. 5 days. My chest tightened again, but I forced myself to stay present. Okay, I said quietly. What happens in 5 days? They move forward legally, she replied. Auction process starts. At that point it's out of your hands. Out of my hands. I looked around my home. The hallway. The pictures on the wall. Daniel as a little boy with missing front teeth. Birthday parties. Christmas mornings. All of it reduced to a timeline. 5 days. And your plan? I asked Daniel without looking at him. He hesitated, then said, if we can come up with at least $50,000, we can delay it, maybe restructure. I let out a short, sharp laugh. 50,000. I repeated. Daniel, do you think I have that just sitting somewhere? No, but maybe you could. Sell something, borrow, ask someone. I cut in. Who, Daniel, who exactly do you think I can go to after this? He didn't answer. Because there was no answer. Ashley shifted slightly. There is one option. I looked at her slowly. What? She held my gaze. Sell the house before the bank takes it. The words hit differently. Not like a shock this time. More like a cold, calculated suggestion. That's your solution? I asked. It's the smartest one, she said. You might still walk away with something instead of losing everything. Everything. I shook my head faintly. This isn't just a house. I know, she said. But right now it's also a liability. There it was again. That word. Cold. Practical. Detached. Like she had already emotionally disconnected from this place. From me. From all of it. And where do you two fit into this plan? I asked. Daniel looked confused. What do you mean? I said, my voice sharpening, after everything you've done, what exactly do you think happens next? Silence. Ashley answered this time too. We start over, she said simply. I stared at her. Start over. She nodded. Sell the house, clear what you can, and then we figure things out from there. We. I repeated. Something inside me finally snapped fully into place. Not broken. Clear. Sharp. Defined. There is no we, Ashley, I said quietly. Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. I stood up slowly, my legs still unsteady, but my mind steady for the first time since this started. This is my house, I said. My life, my responsibility, and yes, my mistake for trusting blindly. Daniel shook his head quickly. Mom, please don't do that, don't shut us out, we can fix this together. No, I said firmly. That one word felt heavier than anything I had said all night. No, Daniel, you already made your choices without me, behind my back, using my name, my trust. His eyes filled with tears. I was desperate. And I was your safety net, I replied. Not your solution. He looked down, unable to meet my eyes anymore. Ashley straightened slightly. So what are you saying? I looked at both of them. And for the first time, I didn't see my son and his wife. I saw two people who had made decisions that cost me everything. I'm saying, I began slowly, that whatever happens next, I handle it. Daniel's head snapped up. What does that mean? It means, I continued, you're not part of the decisions anymore. That's not fair, he said immediately. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because of how ironic it was. Fair. I repeated softly. You want to talk about fair? He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he knew. He knew there was nothing fair about any of this. Ashley stepped forward slightly. Margaret, emotions aside, you're not thinking strategically. You need help whether you like it or not. I met her gaze directly. I'd rather lose everything honestly, I said, than keep anything built on lies. That landed. For the first time, Ashley didn't have an immediate response. The silence stretched between us. Heavy. Final. Pack your things, I said calmly. Daniel blinked. What? You heard me, I said. You both need to leave. The words hung in the air like something irreversible. Mom, his voice cracked. You can't be serious. I am, I said. You made this situation without me. You don't get to stay here while I deal with the consequences. Where are we supposed to go? He asked, panic rising in his voice. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Because despite everything, he was still my son. But that didn't change what he had done. That's something you should have thought about before risking my home, I said quietly. Ashley's jaw tightened. This is a mistake. Maybe, I replied. But it's mine to make. Daniel took a step closer, his eyes pleading now. Please just give us a few days, until we figure something out. I looked at him. Really looked at him. And for a moment, I saw the little boy he used to be. The one who would run to me after a nightmare. The one who trusted me completely. The one I trusted. My chest ached. But then I remembered the papers. The lies. The whispers at 3 a.m. She already has, she just doesn't know it yet. I took a slow breath. You have until tomorrow morning, I said. His face fell. That's not enough time. It's more than I had, I replied. Silence. Ashley grabbed his arm gently. Let's go, she said quietly. He didn't move at first. Then slowly, reluctantly, he nodded. They stepped back into the room. The door closed. And just like that, I was alone. In my own house. That might not be mine in 5 days. I stood there for a long time. Long after the light in their room turned off. Long after the house fell silent again. But this time, the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the beginning of something. Something difficult. Something painful. But also something honest. Because for the first time in months, there were no more secrets. And somehow, that hurt less than the lies. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. I sat at the kitchen table as the sky slowly shifted from black to gray, then to that pale, washed-out blue that comes just before sunrise. Everything looked the same. The same cabinets. The same coffee maker. The same chair Daniel used to sit in every morning before school. But nothing felt the same anymore. By 6:12 am, I had already made 3 decisions. And for the first time in months, every single one of them was mine. The first thing I did was pull out every document I could find. Old folders, tax papers, bank statements, loan agreements, anything with my name on it. I spread them across the table like pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve, but had no choice but to. And slowly, painfully, the picture became clear. There it was. The second mortgage. My signature at the bottom. Clean. Precise. Trusting. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just looked at it. Because that signature didn't just represent a document. It represented a moment I didn't even remember clearly. A moment I didn't question. A moment I gave away control without realizing it. And that was on me. That part I accepted. At exactly 7:03 am, I picked up my phone and made the first call. The bank. It took longer than I expected to get through. Transfers. Holds. Verification questions. But eventually, I was speaking to someone who could actually tell me the truth. Not filtered. Not softened. Real. Yes, Miss Collins, the woman on the line said. Your property is currently in pre-foreclosure status. You are 5 payments behind on the secondary loan. Her tone was calm. Professional. Detached. Like this was just another file. And I understood that. But for me, it was everything. What are my options? I asked. There was a brief pause as she pulled up more details. You have a reinstatement amount due of approximately $48,000 to bring the loan current, she explained. If that is paid within 5 business days, foreclosure proceedings can be paused. $48,000. So Ashley wasn't wrong. Anything else? I asked. Yes, you may also pursue a short sale, refinancing, or full payoff through asset liquidation. Asset liquidation. Another cold phrase for something deeply personal. Thank you, I said quietly and ended the call. I sat there for a moment, letting it all settle. Then I made the second call. This one was harder. Because it wasn't just about money. It was about pride. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Margaret. I closed my eyes briefly. Hi, Linda. Linda Carter. My oldest friend. 32 years. The kind of friend who knows your past, your mistakes, your patterns, and still picks up the phone anyway. You sound off, she said immediately. What's wrong? I hesitated. Not because I didn't trust her, but because saying it out loud would make it real in a way nothing else had yet. I need help, I said finally. Silence. Then her tone shifted instantly. Okay, tell me everything. And I did. Not the short version. Not the filtered version. Everything. The paperwork. The debt. The whispers at 3 a.m. The lies. The betrayal. All of it. By the time I finished, my voice was shaking. Not from weakness, but from the weight of finally carrying it out in the open. Linda didn't speak right away. And for a second, I was afraid. Afraid she'd judge me. Afraid she'd say what I was already thinking. That I should have known better. That I was naive. That I let this happen. But when she finally spoke, her voice was steady. You're not losing your house. The certainty in her tone caught me off guard. Linda. I exhaled, almost a laugh. It's not that simple. I didn't say it was simple, she replied. I said it's not happening. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. You don't even know the full numbers. I don't need to, she said. I know you, and I know you don't give up when something matters. That hit deeper than I expected. Because for a few hours last night, I almost had. I need 48,000 in 5 days, I said quietly. There was a brief pause. Then okay. Okay. Just like that. You have that kind of money? I asked, surprised. No, she said plainly. But I know people who might. I sat up slightly. Linda, I'm not asking you to. You're not asking, she interrupted. I'm offering big difference. I didn't know what to say. Because part of me wanted to refuse immediately. To handle it alone. to fix my own mess. But another part, the smarter part, knew this wasn't just about pride anymore. This was about survival. Let me make some calls, she continued. Give me a few hours. Linda. Margaret, she said firmly, just breathe for a second, you're not alone in this. Those words. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear them until that moment. Okay, I whispered. Good, I'll call you back. The line went quiet. And for the first time since 3 a.m., I felt something shift. Not relief. Not yet. But possibility. At 8:41 a.m., the bedroom door down the hall opened. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Daniel. I didn't turn around right away. I just sat there, my hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Mom. His voice was soft. Hesitant. Like he didn't know if he was allowed to speak anymore. I finally turned. He looked exhausted. Red eyes. Pale face. Like he hadn't slept yet. Ashley stood a few steps behind him, quiet, observant. We're packing, he said. I nodded once. Good. Silence stretched between us again. Different this time. Less explosive. More final. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. The words hung there. Simple. But heavy. I studied his face. Looking for something. Anything. And I found it. Regret. Real regret. But regret didn't erase consequences. I believe you, I said calmly. That seemed to surprise him. But it doesn't change anything, I added. His shoulders dropped slightly. I know, he said quietly. Ashley finally stepped forward. We'll be out before noon, she said. Efficient. Direct. Like this was just another step in a process. I nodded again. And that was it. No yelling. No dramatic exit. Just separation. By 11:26 a.m. they were gone. No slammed doors. No last words. Just the sound of a car pulling out of the driveway. And then nothing. I stood by the window, watching until they disappeared at the end of the street. And I expected to feel something overwhelming. Anger. Grief. Relief. But what I felt instead was quiet. A strange, unfamiliar quiet. Like the house itself was holding its breath. I turned away slowly, walking back into the living room. Every corner held a memory. But now it also held truth. And truth, no matter how painful, was something I could finally work with. At 12:02 p.m. my phone rang. Linda. I answered immediately. Talk to me, I said. There was a slight pause on the other end. Then she said something that made my entire body go still. I found a way, she said. My heart started pounding again. What kind of way? A risky one, she admitted. But it could save everything. I tightened my grip on the phone. I'm listening. I'm listening. There was a pause on the line. Not hesitation, calculation. I spoke to someone I trust, Linda said carefully. A private lender, not a bank, faster process, less red tape, but higher risk. I leaned against the counter, my fingers tightening around the phone. How high? Interest is steep, she admitted. And they'll want collateral. A quiet, bitter realization settled in my chest. The house, I said. Yes. Of course. Everything always came back to the house. I closed my eyes for a moment, forcing myself to think clearly. Not emotionally. Not reactively. Explain it to me, I said. If they approve you, Linda continued, they can cover the reinstatement amount almost immediately. That buys you time, stops foreclosure, but you'll be trading one pressure for another. How much time? 6 months, maybe a year, depending on how you negotiate. 6 months. A window. Not a solution. But right now, a window might be enough. And if I can't pay them back? I asked quietly. Linda didn't sugarcoat it. Then you lose the house anyway, and faster. Honesty. I appreciated that. Even when it hurt. I walked slowly toward the living room, my eyes drifting over the walls again. The photos. The memories. The life built piece by piece. 6 months. Could I fix everything in 6 months? I didn't know. But I did know one thing. Doing nothing guaranteed I'd lose it. Set it up, I said. There was a brief silence. You're sure? No, I admitted. But I'm certain about one thing, I'm not going down without a fight. Linda let out a small breath. That's the Margaret I know. We ended the call shortly after. And just like that, I had a direction. Risky. Unstable. But mine. The next 48 hours passed in a blur. Paperwork. Calls. Verification. Financial disclosures I hadn't touched in years. Every number felt like a confession. Every signature felt heavier than the last. But this time, I read everything. Every word. Every clause. No blind trust. No assumptions. By the third day, I met him. The lender. His office wasn't what I expected. Not flashy. Not intimidating. Just quiet. Controlled. A man in his early 50s. Calm eyes. Measured tone. The kind of person who didn't need to raise his voice to hold power. He reviewed my file in front of me. Slowly. Deliberately. You're in a difficult position, he said finally. I'm aware, I replied. His lips curved slightly. Not a smile. More like acknowledgement. You were taken advantage of, he added. I held his gaze. No, I said calmly. I allowed trust without verification, that's on me. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. Most people don't say that, he noted. Most people don't want to face it, I replied. He closed the folder gently. I can't help you, he said. But understand this isn't charity. I'm not asking for charity. Good. He slid a document across the desk. Read. And I did. Line by line. No rushing. No assumptions. Every clause. Every condition. Every consequence. When I finally looked up, my heart was steady. I understand, I said. And you accept. I thought about Daniel. About that 3 a.m. whisper. She already has, she just doesn't know it yet. I thought about the version of me who didn't know. Who signed without reading. Who trusted without question. That version of me was gone. Yes, I said. I accept. The money cleared the next morning. $48,000. Just like that, the immediate threat was gone. The foreclosure process paused. The clock reset. But the pressure didn't disappear. It changed. Now I had 6 months. 6 months to fix what had taken years to break. And I started immediately. The first thing I did was something I should have done a long time ago. I took back control. Every account. Every bill. Every document. Nothing went through anyone else anymore. Then I did something harder. I went through Daniel's room. Not out of anger. Out of necessity. I needed to understand the full damage. And what I found was worse than I expected. Statements. Notices. Hidden letters. Stacks of them. Some unopened. Some deliberately hidden. Dates going back months. Warnings escalating into consequences. And right in the middle of it all, a small notebook. I opened it slowly. Page after page of numbers. Wins. Losses. Bets. Hope turning into desperation. And then into obsession. I sat on the edge of the bed, flipping through it, feeling something inside me shift again. Not anger. Not even betrayal anymore. Understanding. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But understanding. This wasn't just irresponsibility. This was addiction. A losing battle he had been fighting and hiding. And I had been the final resource he burned through. I closed the notebook gently. Because now I knew something important. This wasn't just about money. It never was. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt everything from the ground up. Budgeting. Expenses. Cutting anything unnecessary. I even did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I went back to work. Part-time at first. Then more. It wasn't about pride anymore. It was about survival. And strangely, it gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Every dollar I earned felt different. Intentional. Earned. Real. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, steadily progress. Not dramatic, but consistent. And then one evening, about 3 months in, my phone rang. Daniel. I stared at the screen for a long time, my thumb hovering over the answer button. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to let him sit in the consequences of his actions. But another part, the part that never stopped being his mother, couldn't. I answered. Hello. Silence. Then, Mom. His voice sounded different. Quieter. Humbled. Yeah, I said. Another pause. I've been going to meetings, he said. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't care, but because I needed to understand. What kind of meetings? You know, he hesitated. For gambling addiction. I closed my eyes briefly. So he knew. He finally saw it. That's good, I said simply. I'm trying, he added quickly. I really am. I hope so, I replied. Silence again. Then. I found a job, he said. It's not great, but it's something. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. That matters. Another pause. Then his voice cracked slightly. I know I don't deserve it, but can I come see you? There it was. The moment I knew would come eventually. The question wasn't whether he'd ask. The question was what my answer would be. I looked around the house. The same house, but different now. Stronger. Not because it hadn't been broken, but because it had been rebuilt. Carefully. Intentionally. I took a slow breath. You can come, I said finally. Relief flooded his voice instantly. Thank you, Mom, But not to move back in, I added. Silence. I understand, he said quietly. And Daniel. Yea. This time no lies. No lies, he repeated. We ended the call shortly after. And as I set my phone down, I realized something. I hadn't just saved my house. I had rebuilt something far more important. Boundaries. Self-respect. Clarity. And maybe, just maybe, the foundation for something new. Not the same as before, but stronger than it had ever been. Because this time, it wasn't built on blind trust. It was built on truth. The day he came back, I almost didn't recognize him. Not because he looked different, but because something in him had shifted. Daniel had always carried himself with a certain ease. Even when things were wrong, he hid it behind confidence, quick smiles, easy answers. That was gone. When I opened the door, he stood there for a second like he wasn't sure he was allowed to step inside. Hi, he said quietly. Hi, I replied. Neither of us moved right away. Then I stepped aside. Come. He walked in slowly, his eyes scanning the house like it was unfamiliar territory. And in a way it was. Because this wasn't the same place he left. Not really. We sat in the living room. Same couch. Same table. But the space between us felt different. Measured. Careful. I cleaned my room before I left, he said awkwardly, glancing down the hallway. I noticed, I replied. Another pause. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled something out. A folded envelope. He held it out toward me. What's this? I asked. I owe you, he said. It's not much, but it's a start. I didn't take it immediately. Not because I didn't want to, but because I needed to understand the intention behind it. Where did this come from? My job, he said. And I sold some things. I studied his face. No defensiveness. No excuses. Just accountability. Slowly I took the envelope. It wasn't heavy, but it meant something. Thank you, I said. He nodded, relief flickering across his face. We sat there for a moment longer before I finally asked the question that had been sitting in the back of my mind. Where's Ashley? His expression shifted slightly. We're not together right now, he said. That didn't surprise me as much as I thought it would. What happened? He let out a breath. A lot, he admitted. But mostly she said she couldn't do this anymore. This, I repeated. He gave a small, tired smile. The mess, the rebuilding, the consequences. I leaned back slightly, letting that settle. And you? I asked. I stayed, he said simply. Something about that answer mattered. Not because it fixed anything, but because it showed something had changed. You're getting help? I asked. He nodded. 3 meetings a week, sometimes more. Good. I'm serious about it, Mom, he added quickly. I don't want to be that person anymore. I looked at him carefully. I don't think you ever wanted to be, I said. He swallowed hard. No, he admitted. But I became him anyway. Silence settled again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was honest. I read your notebook, I said quietly. His head dropped immediately. I figured, he muttered. I'm glad I did, I added. He looked up surprised. You are? Yes, I said. Because now I understand something I didn't before. What? That this wasn't just you being careless, I said. This was something deeper. His eyes filled slightly. I didn't know how to stop, he admitted. I know, I replied. And I did. Not because I had lived it, but because I had finally seen it clearly. That doesn't excuse what you did, I continued. I know, he said again quickly. But it explains it, I finished. He nodded slowly. And for the first time, it felt like we were actually talking. Not avoiding. Not pretending. Just talking. Over the next hour, he told me everything. The first bet. The first win. How easy it felt. How fast it spiraled. The losses. The desperation. The lies stacking on top of each other until he couldn't tell where one ended and the next began. And finally, the moment he decided to use the house. I told myself it was temporary, he said, his voice breaking slightly. That I'd fix it before you ever knew. I nodded slowly. That's what you believed, I said. Yeah, he whispered. But belief doesn't change reality, I added gently. No, he agreed. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I asked the question that had been sitting deeper than all the others. Why didn't you come to me? He didn't answer right away. When he finally did, it was barely above a whisper. Because I was ashamed. That word hung in the heavy. Real. I didn't want you to see me like that, he continued. I didn't want to be a disappointment. I felt something tighten in my chest. Daniel, I said softly, you became one the moment you chose deception over honesty. He nodded, tears slipping down his face now. I know. I let that sit. Because it needed to. Not as punishment, but as truth. After a while, he wiped his face and took a deep breath. I want to make this right, he said. I studied him carefully. Then understand something, I replied. He nodded. This isn't something you fix quickly, I said. Not with one apology, not with one payment, this is going to take time. I know, he said. And consistency, I added. I know. And honesty even when it's uncomfortable. I know. I held his gaze for a moment longer. Then I nodded. Okay. That one word seemed to mean more to him than anything else I could have said. Because it wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a door. A possibility. Something to work toward. He stayed for a little while longer. We talked about practical things. His job. His meetings. The repayment plan. Small steps. Real steps. And when he left, it didn't feel like the end of something. It felt like the beginning of something different. Something uncertain. But real. Over the next 3 months, things didn't magically improve. There were setbacks. Hard days. Moments where I questioned everything. But there was also progress. Daniel kept showing up. Not perfectly, but consistently. Payments small but regular. Updates honest even when they were hard to hear. And slowly. Trust didn't return. But something else started to grow in its place. Respect. Because trust is given. But respect is earned back. One action at a time. 6 months passed faster than I expected. The loan pressure was still there. The work wasn't done. But I wasn't the same person who stood in that hallway at 3 a.m. anymore. I had faced something I never thought I would. Loss. Betrayal. Fear. And I didn't break. I adapted. I learned. I rebuilt. And one evening, as I sat in the same kitchen where it all started, I realized something quietly, almost unexpectedly. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of losing the house. Not of being alone. Not of starting over if I had to. Because now, I knew I could. And that was something no one could take from me again. The 7th month started with a letter. Not a threatening one. Not a warning. Something different. I almost didn't open it right away. Old habits. The kind that come from months of bad news wrapped in official envelopes. But this time I forced myself to sit down, take a breath, and face it head on. My name was printed neatly across the front. Inside. It was from the lender. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time, just to be sure I wasn't misunderstanding it. They were offering a restructuring option. Lower monthly pressure. Longer term. Still not easy but manageable. A path forward that didn't feel like I was constantly standing on the edge of a cliff. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the paper as something unfamiliar settled in my chest. Relief. Not overwhelming. Not dramatic. Just steady. The kind that doesn't rush in loudly. The kind that quietly replaces fear. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just sat there letting it exist. Because for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something I had to survive. It felt like something I could shape. Later that evening, Daniel came by again. He had started coming once a week. Same day. Same time. Not because I asked him to. Because he chose to. Consistency. That word had become everything. He knocked like always. And like always, he waited. That still mattered to me. Come in, I called out. He stepped inside holding a small grocery bag. I brought dinner, he said. I raised an eyebrow slightly. You cooked. He gave a half smile. I tried. That made me smile. Just a little. We ate at the kitchen table. Simple food. Nothing special. But it wasn't about the food. It was about the quiet effort behind it. Halfway through the meal, I slid the letter across the table. What's this? He asked. Read it. He wiped his hands and opened it carefully. As his eyes moved across the page, I watched his face change. Confusion. Then realization. Then something deeper. Mom, he looked up, his voice softer. This is good. It is, I said. He nodded slowly. This gives you time, he added. It gives me a chance, I corrected. He swallowed. I'm going to help, he said. I didn't respond right away. Not because I doubted him, but because I needed to be clear. You are helping, I said. By doing what you're doing now. He shook his head. No, I mean more. I can take on extra shifts, I can. Daniel. He stopped. This doesn't get fixed by you trying to carry everything, I said calmly. That's how we got here. He looked down. I just want to make it right. I know, I said. And I did. But wanting and doing, they're not the same thing. You make it right, I continued, by staying consistent, by staying honest, by not running when it gets hard. He nodded slowly. I can do that. Then do that, I said. Silence settled again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was grounded. After dinner, he helped clean up without being asked. Small thing. But not really. Because it showed awareness. Effort. Change. When he was about to leave, he paused near the door. Mom. Yay. He hesitated. I saw Ashley. That caught my attention. Oh. He nodded. A few days ago. I waited. She's doing okay, I think, he said. She moved in with her sister. I didn't react immediately. Not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't sure what I felt. And I asked. He exhaled slowly. She asked about you. That surprised me. What did you say? That you're strong, he said. That you're handling everything. I nodded faintly. And what did she say to that? He hesitated again. She said she knew you would. Something about that stayed with me. Not in a painful way. Not even in an angry way. Just a quiet acknowledgement. Like pieces of a story finally settling into place. People see what they want to see, I said after a moment. He looked at me. What do you mean? I replied, sometimes people recognize strength, but they don't stick around for what it takes to build it. He didn't respond. But I could tell he understood. Good night, Mom, he said finally. Good night, Daniel. He left. And once again the house fell into that familiar quiet. But it wasn't empty anymore. Not in the way it used to be. Because now, it held something new. Not just memories. Not just lessons. But growth. Real, hard-earned growth. Weeks passed. Then months. The rhythm of my life changed. Work. Payments. Quiet evenings. Occasional visits. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. But it was real. And one morning, almost a year after that night, I stood in the same hallway where everything had unraveled. 3 a.m. had come and gone. The house was silent. Peaceful. I walked slowly to the guest room door. The same door that had been slightly open that night. The same light that had spilled into the hallway. Only now. It was just a room again. Empty. Still. I stood there for a moment, my hand resting lightly on the frame. And I thought about everything that had happened since then. The shock. The betrayal. The fear. The rebuilding. The choices. The boundaries. The growth. All of it started right here. With a whisper I wasn't meant to hear. She already has, she just doesn't know it yet. I let out a slow breath. Because they were right about one thing. I had lost something that night. The version of my life I thought I had. The blind trust. The certainty. But what they didn't know, what I didn't know, was what I would gain in return. Clarity. Strength. Self-respect. And the ability to stand on my own no matter what came next. I turned off the hallway light and walked back toward my room. Not as the woman who was afraid of losing everything, but as the woman who had already faced that fear. And kept going anyway. A year changes you in ways you don't notice at first. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic, life-altering moment. But slowly, quietly, until one day you look at yourself and realize you're not who you used to be. And you're grateful for that. It was early morning when I got the call. 7:18 a.m. I remember the exact time because I had just poured my coffee and was about to sit down when my phone buzzed on the counter. Daniel. That wasn't unusual anymore. But something about the timing felt different. I picked up. Hey, I said. There was no response right away. Just breathing. Heavy. Uneven. Daniel. Mom, his voice came through, strained. I messed up. My grip tightened slightly on the phone, but my voice stayed steady. What happened? A pause. Then, I didn't gamble. That detail came out fast. Urgent. Like he needed me to know that first. And strangely, that mattered. Okay, I said. Then what? I lost my job, he admitted. I closed my eyes for a second. Not because I was shocked, but because I knew what this moment could become if I wasn't careful. The old pattern. The spiral. Why? I asked calmly. They're downsizing, he said quickly. I swear it wasn't because of anything I did. I've been showing up. I've been doing everything right. I believed him. Not blindly, but based on the man he had been for the past year. Okay, I said again. Then we deal with that. Silence. Then his voice cracked. I thought I had it under control. I thought I was finally fixing things. You are, I said. He let out a shaky breath. It doesn't feel like it. I know, I replied. But progress isn't a straight line. Another pause. I don't want to fall back, he said quietly. That was the real fear. Not the job. Not the money. The fear of becoming who he used to be. You won't, I said. How do you know? Because I had learned something over the past year. Something that mattered more than any plan or number or timeline. Because this time you're not hiding, I said. Silence again. But this one felt different. He was listening. You called me, I continued. You told the truth, you didn't wait until things got worse, that's the difference. His breathing steadied slightly. I didn't even think, I just called you. Good, I said. Keep doing that. Another long pause. Then, what do? I leaned against the counter, staring out the window. A year ago, that question would have trapped me. Pulled me into fixing everything. Taking control. Carrying the weight for him. But not anymore. First, I said, you take today and you don't panic. Okay. Second, you go to your meeting. I will. Third, you start looking for your next step, not your perfect step, just your next one. He exhaled slowly. Okay. And Daniel. Yeah. You don't come here looking for a rescue. There was a brief silence. I know, he said quietly. But you can come here for support, I added. Another pause. Thank you, he whispered. We ended the call a few minutes later. And as I set my phone down, I realized something important. This was the moment that would have broken us before. The setback. The unexpected hit. The kind of thing that used to trigger everything else. But this time, it didn't. Because we weren't the same people anymore. Later that afternoon, he came by. Not with panic. Not with excuses. Just present. We sat at the kitchen table again. That same table where everything had started to change. I updated my resume, he said. Good. I applied to 3 places already. Good. I have a meeting tonight. Good. Each answer steady. Grounded. Not desperate. Not spiraling. Just moving forward. I'm scared, he admitted after a while. I nodded. That's normal. I just don't want to go backwards. You won't, I said. He looked at me. You sound sure? I am, I replied. Why? Because I had seen the difference. Not in his words, but in his actions. In the past, fear made you hide, I said. Now it makes you show up. He sat with that for a moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah, that's true. We talked for a while longer. Not about the past. Not about blame. Just about what comes next. Simple. Focused. Real. And when he left, I didn't feel that old anxiety. That fear that everything could collapse again at any moment. Because now I understood something I didn't before. Life doesn't stop testing you just because you've learned your lesson. It gives you chances to prove you actually did. And this was one of those chances. That night, I stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street. The same street I had watched him leave from a year ago. The same place I had stood, feeling like everything was over. But now, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like something else entirely. A continuation. Because the truth is, that night at 3 a.m. didn't destroy my life. It exposed it. And everything that came after wasn't about getting back what I lost. It was about building something better with what remained. Stronger. Wiser. Real. And as I turned off the lights and walked back through the house, I didn't see it as something I almost lost anymore. I saw it for what it had become. Not just a place where I lived, but a place where I learned how to stand again. A few weeks after that call, something unexpected happened. Not dramatic. Not life-shattering. Just quiet. The kind of moment you almost overlook if you're not paying attention. I was going through my usual routine. Morning coffee. A quick look at my notes. Payments lined up carefully, every dollar accounted for. That had become my habit now. Control. Awareness. Intention. No more guessing. No more blind trust. Just clarity. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Daniel. It was an unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me to pick up. Hello. Margaret Collins, a woman's voice asked. Yes. This is Rachel from the lending office. I wanted to follow up on your account. My posture straightened slightly. Okay. I'll keep this brief, she continued. Your payment history over the past year has been consistent. Consistent. That word again. I didn't say anything. I just listened. Based on that, she went on, we're offering you a refinancing option. Lower rate, longer term, reduced monthly pressure. I blinked. For a second, I thought I misheard her. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? She did. Slowly. Clearly. And this time it landed. Not as shock, but as something earned. I qualify. I asked. Yes, she said. Your discipline changed your profile. Discipline. Not luck. Not timing. Not someone else stepping in. Mine. I leaned back in my chair, letting that settle in fully. I'd like to review the details, I said. Of course, I'll send everything over. We ended the call shortly after. And I just sat there. Not moving. Not reacting. Because this wasn't a rescue. It was a result of every hard decision. Every uncomfortable moment. Every time I chose not to run from the truth. Later that day, Daniel showed up again. But this time, there was something different about him too. He walked in with a kind of quiet energy. Not forced. Not overly excited. Just steady. I got the job, he said. I looked up at him. The one you applied for last week. He nodded. It's not perfect, he added quickly. But it's stable, good hours. I smiled. Then it's exactly what you need. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it in all day. I didn't mess this one up, he said. There was something in the way he said that. Not pride. Relief. I didn't expect you to, I replied. He looked at me for a second. Then nodded. Yeah, I guess that's new. We both knew what he meant. And neither of us needed to say it out loud. I reached over and slid the printed email toward him. What's this? He asked. Read it. He did. And just like before, I watched his face change as he processed it. Mom, he looked up almost in disbelief. This is huge. It is, I said. You did this, he added. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. I built toward it. He smiled faintly. That's what I meant. We sat there for a moment, both of us absorbing something bigger than just numbers on a page. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about direction. About proof that things could change if you stayed with them long enough. I want to do the same, he said quietly. You are, I replied. He nodded slowly. I mean, really build something this time, not chase it. That distinction mattered. Then keep doing what you're doing, I said. I will. And for the first time in a long time. I believed him without hesitation. Not because of who he used to be, but because of who he had shown himself to be now. That evening after he left, I walked through the house again. Not out of habit. Not out of anxiety. Just awareness. Every room felt different now. Not because the walls had changed, but because I had. The fear that once lived here was gone. Not completely erased, but replaced with something stronger. Confidence. Not loud. Not arrogant. Just grounded. Because I knew something now that I didn't before. I could lose everything and still rebuild. And that knowledge changes the way you live. Weeks turned into months again. The refinance went through. The pressure eased. Not disappeared, but manageable. Structured. Predictable. Life found a rhythm. Simple. Steady. Real. And one night, almost exactly 2 years after that 3 a.m. whisper, I woke up again. Same time. 3:07 a.m. For a second, my heart reacted out of memory. Old fear. Old tension. But then, nothing. No whispers. No secrets. No weight pressing down on me. Just silence. Peaceful silence. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling. And then I smiled. Because I understood something fully, finally. That night didn't define me. What I did after it did. I got up, walked to the hallway, and looked at that same door one last time. Closed. Quiet. Still. And this time, it didn't hold anything over me. It didn't represent loss, or betrayal, or fear. It was just a door. I turned away, walked back to my room, and lay down again. No racing thoughts. No heavy chest. Just calm. Because the truth is, I didn't just keep my house. I reclaimed my life. And I rebuilt it in a way that no one could quietly take from me again. Morning light crept through the curtains, soft and golden, and for the first time in years it felt like it belonged to me entirely. I didn't need to check the hallway. I didn't need to listen for whispers. That fear, that tension, it no longer had a home in my heart. I walked to the kitchen, brewed my coffee, and sat at the table, watching my son play with my grandson in the living room. Laughter, real, pure laughter, filled the space. No schemes. No manipulation. Just family. Just life. I realized then that the battles I had fought weren't only against others. They had been against my own doubts, my own hesitation to claim my place in the family, my own fear that love could be taken from me. And now I could see clearly it wasn't taken. I had held on to it the whole time. I thought about my daughter-in-law not with anger, not even fully with forgiveness, but with understanding. She had been scared. She had been uncertain. And like me, she had had to learn her way through fear. That acknowledgement didn't erase the past, but it changed how I carried it. I poured a second cup of coffee and brought it to my son and grandson. My grandson looked up, grinning, and ran into my arms. That simple act, a hug, a warm embrace, was worth every sleepless night, every whispered fear, every shadow that had lingered in my home. And as I held him, I made a quiet promise to myself: no secret, no betrayal, no fear could ever take this peace again. Not from me, not from my family, not from the life I had fought to reclaim. Because the truth was simple, steady, and real: life moves forward. It builds. It heals. And even after the darkest nights, you can find yourself standing in the morning light, knowing that you are no longer a prisoner of the past, but the author of everything that comes next.